Just think of the expectations and the pressures upon the host and the hostess, the parents of bride and groom who have prepared for quite some time in this era and place of prearranged marriage to celebrate the wedding of their son and daughter by inviting the entire town, the entire village, which was made up of all family and friends. They invited people from neighboring villages and neighboring towns who were there as well. John's gospel says that Jesus and his disciples were at that wedding, as was Jesus' mother, Mary. She was there. And then the wine runs out. Here they are trying to lay it on for friends and family. They're ready to party, and the wine runs out. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, is that really so bad? You know, maybe they shouldn't have had an open bar in the first place. But the fact of the matter is every wedding included wine in the time of Jesus. Wine was the way of celebrating with your family and friends. It was almost Eucharistic in that it represented the covenant that God made with God's people and the covenant now that God was making with the rest of the world through Jesus. Wine was important. I was thinking to myself, how am I going to help my congregation understand just what a problem it is for the wine to run out? And the best parallel I could think of was picture yourself at a Browns game and having to be the person to announce to the crowd that there's no more beer. You're starting to get it. The stress meter is starting to go into the red, isn't it? There's no more wine. Well, the good news is Jesus was at the party. The good news in the midst of all this stress and anxiety is that Jesus was at the party. In fact, as we read on in John's Gospel, we discover that Jesus was not only at the party, but Jesus was the life of the party. Jesus was the life of the party, just as Jesus is the life of our party. Jesus is the one whose word, whose very presence in our lives brings calm to our anxiety. The one who brings the stressometer back down into the green where we can experience peace in our lives once again. Well, in Cana, Jesus took the jars that were filled with water for purification. And he says to the stewards, fill them up with water. And then he says, draw that liquid out of those jars and take it to the chief steward. The chief steward tastes it. He says, this wine is fantastic. He is so impressed by this amazing wine that he goes to the bridegroom and he says, hey, most people serve the good stuff first, and when people are toasted, that's the Greek. The English, it says drunk, but they were drunk. When people are drunk, then they serve the cheap stuff because their taste buds are dulled and nobody knows any better. That's the practice. But he said, you saved the best for last. You saved the best for now. See, the chief steward didn't know about the sign. He didn't know what was happening, but Jesus' disciples did. Jesus' disciples understood, and so did the stewards, the sous chefs to the head chef, the stewards to the head steward. They understood what was at play here, that Jesus was in their midst, and somehow when Jesus, His presence is in your midst, somehow God's presence is in your midst. Now, some people want to say this was a miracle. This was the first miracle that was ever recorded in the Gospels. I beg to differ. It doesn't say this was a miracle in this. Now, to you and me, we might see changing water into wine as a miracle. As a kid, I had a junior science kit. Maybe you had the same one. You were able to change water into wine. Well, actually, you were able to change some vinegar into some red color. I don't know what we added, food color or something. But this was not a science trick. It was not a miracle. It wasn't even magic. According to John, and if you read chapter 2, verse 11, Charles, it says that Jesus did this, the first of His signs. This was not necessarily a miracle, but this was a sign that the presence of God was now among the people. John goes on and says, this was the first of the signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed Christ's glory. It revealed to the people who Jesus was. It revealed to the people that when the Word of God, when the Spirit of God, when the Son of God is in your midst, you can be at peace. You can rest assured. You can rest assured. You can find comfort, you can find strength, you can find hope, even in the most difficult of times. Now, I don't know if you caught the news the other day. I'm sure you've seen many, many reports coming about the tragedy in Haiti this week. But every now and then we get a good news piece, a reminder that there's still hope, Charles. In the midst of this tragedy, there is still hope. You see, the nations are coming together. The nations are gathering, and the best of our humanity is coming to life to respond. Some of you received the email that I sent out this week with a link to the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance Program. The Presbyterian Church is sending $1 million to the program. I think that's great. These are very good things that are coming out of it. But one of the things that really impressed me was this woman who had been trapped under the rubble for 50-plus hours. More than 2 days, she had been under the crushing weight of concrete and wood and steel. And they finally pulled her out. And they asked her how she was able to survive. And she said, I don't know. She said, I just kept praying. I just kept praying, and I prayed without ceasing that God would stay with me. And she said, somehow that prayer was answered. God never left me. And I was able to keep going. Because God was with me, I never gave up. It seems to me that's what the promise of the gospel is all about. The sign that Jesus is bringing to us at the wedding of Cana, that when God is in your midst, you still have hope. That you cannot give up. That your stress level can come back down to here, because even though you may feel like you are out of control and your world is out of control, God is not out of control. God still has us in the palm of His hand. Now, some of you may be asking, well, what about the 100,000 who were crushed and killed? Good question. You think God caused that? Absolutely not. But the promise of the gospel is that for those who survived, God is abiding with them, giving them strength and hope and possibility for renewal and healing. And for those who were killed, you remember John's gospel said, in my Father's house are many rooms. Let not your hearts be troubled. I go to get a place ready for you, for when that hour comes, I will come to you, so that where I am, you may be also. Do you think God abandoned those people in death? If you think God abandoned people in the midst of death, then you shouldn't be here today. The reason we call ourselves people of faith is because we live on the other side of an open tomb of Easter morning. It's God who rolls away the stone and invites us in to live this eternal and abundant life in Jesus Christ. God forgets neither the living nor the dead. The promise of the wedding of Cana is a sign to us all that Christ's glory, God's presence, is being revealed to us in Him, in His Word, and in His Spirit.